and it's double figures.
Welcome to Ask the Accountant, the podcast that is made for you. Weekly podcast live Mondays from 8:30 a.m., released on the podcast service of your choice on Wednesdays. Your main weekly hosts, Aaron, Patrick, and Johann. Got something to ask? Submit your questions below or ask during the show. Podcast loading. We are currently getting everything set up behind the scenes, so sit back, relax, and we will be with you in a few seconds. Enjoy.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 10 of Ask the Accountant. Aaron still bopping away to that intro. That's got to be the best way to start a Monday morning. How are you, Aaron?
Very, 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 very good. Yeah, but in an interesting day already. I was telling you off air, wasn't I?
Yes.
We had a little extra friend join us today in our household. So we've had a bit of a field mouse problem in the garage, and woke up today to find him in a humane trap sat there. So I've spent the morning letting it out, getting it reacquainted with its new home as far away as possible, as it decided to help itself to some of the Christmas treats. So apparently Christmas or field mice really like popping candy. So you would never have guessed that one. So that's what I've learned today. So what about you, Jan? You had a good day, good weekend?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Very good. Very chilled weekend.
Literally chilled, wasn't it, with snow?
Well, yeah, we had lots of snow. It's currently -3 outside. So the dog has even turned around and said no thank you to his morning walk. Yeah, it's cold, as it always is at this time of year in Scotland. But yeah, no, very good. Chilled weekend. Obsessingly, we've caught up now with The Good Doctor. So we're now in line with everyone else. So we now need to find something else to binge watch. But we'll find something quick enough, I'm sure. But yeah, no, and busy week last week. I'm not really sure where the week went last week. It was one of those weeks where it's really busy, but you don't feel you've actually achieved very much at all. But yeah, so welcome to this episode of Ask the Accountant. We come to you at 8:30 a.m. on every Monday morning. Aaron and myself, we will go through the news of the industry and various other topics that tickle our fancy. Throughout the podcast, do not forget to review us on your podcast channels. Podcast goes live at about 5 a.m. on every Wednesday morning. I'm not there to check that it's gone live. It's all automated, don't worry. And if you've got any questions or feedback, please stick that into the comments of our live recordings using the links already in there. Or you can send us feedback on our Google form, which is also linked in the comments. So here we go. And Paul, good morning. Paul, one of our regular listeners, is there already. Look at that. So before we go into our topics, I'd just like to thank absolutely everybody who has supported and sent amazing feedback and reacted to all our posts over the last weekend for our Ask the Accountant, We Have Cool Friends episode 1 that came out on Friday afternoon. Friday evening, wasn't it, at 5 o'clock really? But what better way than to sit and relax and chill out on a Friday evening with an episode of Ask the Accountant, We've Got Cool Friends. The guest was revealed, Mr. Sage, Chris Dawson himself, who was an absolutely fantastic guest. Really enjoyed our hour with him and the after conversations and the before conversations, to be fair. He was an absolute gentleman and opened my eyes to his background, his insights, his passion. I think that's the one thing that really came through, wasn't it, Aaron? Is the passion that he has, regardless of the softwares he works with. That the passion that one man and individual has towards the industry and the businesses the industry is trying to help was catching.
Yeah, and his eye for detail as well. That's what I took away from it. Like, I now know who to turn to if there's any kind of maybe some news we need to know about, or at least something that we need to clarify, because he just knows every financial detail and everything that goes through. It's just a wealth of information, isn't it? So yeah, but no, some really great conversation topics there. I couldn't think of a better start to the whole We Have Cool Friends. I think that's really set a high standard, high bar.
Yeah.
And also I think we've set ourselves a high bar where it's situated as well, because it'll take some beating in that location, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, we've had a few requests off the back of that podcast for people wanting to be guests, which is absolutely fantastic. That's what we wanted. So we've had Telaroo, Modular, Free Agent. We've got people from QuickBooks lined up. We've got all sorts of fantastic guests lined up. And part of me was considering, do we just say, just for the speed and haste of it, do we just go, no, we'll just do it online like we do these kind of things? But I think no, picking a decent location like the Brewdog in Waterloo was what made it even better, more special. So they won't be out as frequently at the moment because we're not going to be able to get together and record in person again for a couple of weeks with Christmas and New Year and tax year end and stuff. But we'll definitely be looking at doing it, and we are looking for locations in Edinburgh as well, because we'll go down to London and do that one, but anyone a bit north of London might want to do something a bit more north. So we'll look at Edinburgh and we'll look at a few other places to see where we can justify a road trip.
And what a shame I've got to go all the way to Edinburgh. Oh,
I know, you must be gutted.
Absolutely gutted. Yeah. That infamous burger bar that we talk about every time we have a get together. So, yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Always have to shout out.
What a location. But yeah, so huge thank you to absolutely everyone. We'll apologize now. The tech wasn't great at times. Like the video angles were awful. And we're going to put a lapel mic on me just to save Lizzie, our editor, some stress and hassle. Because, yeah, bless her. She had to work very hard to edit my sound because I keep moving away from the microphone, which is not ideal. But yeah, I think overall, Aaron, I think pat on the back. That was a good first attempt.
It was. And I think we just nailed that intro as well. I think that's what really kind of gets it in, isn't it? And I think, going forward, Ask the Accountant will always be live and uncut, and we'll never change that format. But yeah, having that a bit more produced format for We Have Cool Friends, I think works really well. I give something people to get excited about, doesn't it? So
it does, yeah, definitely.
Looking forward to the next one.
Definitely. Right. Okay. So we will stop reminiscing. Move on.
We do have one more bit of feedback though, Johann, just to keep you in the loop.
Carry on.
There's chatter on the internet, on the socials, about what items have you forgot to put on the back of those shelving units, because people are saying that those shelving units aren't as big as what you had before. So we're trying to figure out who didn't make the cut. So comments down below and let us know what who've you spotted has kind of fallen off a little bit from Johann's wall of fame. So yeah, we people are looking into it, and a lot of people have commented on the shoes as well. So yeah, it looks like your background's getting the chatter that it deserves.
Good. Well, I've stuck on there some of my Lego models and stuff up there because I enjoy doing my Lego, and I've now got a festive wooden Christmas tree from courtesy of Free Agent.
Oh, nice one.
But yeah, I'll have to have a look at what's in the pile next to my desk as to what didn't make it. But yeah, no, I did have to downsize when I moved home. So that's the joys of home offices. They're not ever as big and well lit and glamorous as the main office.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing what you do with it next. So I'm thinking a bit of RGB or something on there, just to give it that next level of
some disco lights.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I will keep playing with it. Keep going with it. Right, first topic today, Aaron. Sage Earth. Have you heard of Sage Earth?
Well, not until you told me about it before this in the intro here. So no, this was also an acquisition that completely went under my radar. I didn't even know about the acquisition that happened itself. So yeah, I mean, tell us a little bit more, Johann. I mean, it's one of those, isn't it, where I think the idea behind it is absolutely sound, but the implementation of it seems a little bit. So I think that's where we're going to get conversation topics from.
Challenging, yeah. So, as we all know, global warming, carbon footprints, etc., net zero targets are all becoming a more and more discussed topic, not just for the big businesses, but our small businesses as well. And in many, many ways, the small startup businesses are actually leading the charge on finding ways to become more net zero quicker. If that's a thing, is that a word? More net zero quicker. To become net zero in a shorter period of time. It sounds better. And over the last 2 years, I'd say, I've seen more and more little softwares popping up at Accounting Web Live and Accountex and stuff, where they've got tools that you basically answer a huge questionnaire and you put in a few figures and it comes out with your approximate carbon footprint and ways you can reduce that. And if you do X, Y, and Z, you could be carbon net zero by 2030, 2040, whatever it comes up with. So there was a tool in the industry called Spherix, SPHERICS. Spherix. My dyslexia is not helping me there. But ultimately, Sage acquired it back in October, so just 2 months ago. And it's now been rebranded into Sage Earth. And basically, the idea of the tool is that it can pull off certain key metrics from your accounts, plus your manual input about various things of office you've got, how much electricity you use, how much gas you use, how much traveling you do, etc., etc. And it comes up with how much carbon you're pumping into the world and how long it's going to take you to get to net zero if you do aggressive, medium, and slow transition towards it. Now, the ultimate goal of this is for companies that want to be B Corps, which are very environmentally sound companies, and other companies to be able to go to give some facts and figures to their audience, to their stakeholders, whether that's their shareholders, their staff, their customers, whoever it is. So I have to say, I'm impressed that Sage has seen this trend and made an acquisition and rebranded it in 2 months. I think that's incredible. I mean, Sage, we discussed in the podcast with Chris, didn't we, that the dynamic approach that Sage leadership seems to be taking to acquisitions and reacting to trends and stuff, and that's fantastic. Now, the overwhelming feedback about all of these kind of softwares, though, that I've looked at and I've spoken to people about is accountants like facts and figures. We like accurate understandings of things. And a lot of these softwares at the moment are very guesstimate, estimate, assumption-based, average-based kind of figures, which a lot of people then question their place to be on a set of accounts, because that is ultimately what people are saying is we should be reporting our carbon impact alongside our financial results so that we can be held to account for improving our carbon impact. And in the same way we state on a set of accounts, in 2020 we had 13 staff, in 2021 we had 14 staff. We should be going, in 2020 we had this amount of carbon impact, in 2021 we had slightly less. So it all makes sense as a concept to me. However, are we happy with estimates, guesstimates, and assumptions? I'm not so sure at the moment. But then there's also a pricing factor. Now, I've not seen Sage Earth's pricing, but other softwares I've looked at like this have come out extortionately expensive for especially small businesses to consider. So, you know, we've got one client who is really pushing for the whole net zero as soon as possible. They buy all their products locally. They don't import. They're constantly improving their working processes, their equipment, their facility to be more environmental. So they were interested in this concept of being able to go and declare these figures to their social media following. But the problem was the price tag the software companies associated to the software versus the value the client was going to get out of it were two extremely different things. So I think it was going to cost over £1,000 a year for this client to use this software. And that, is it going to generate over £1,000 worth of new business for them? Because they're publicly stating some assumptions, guesstimates, and estimates. The client didn't think so and couldn't justify it. So we walked away from it. But yeah, so that's my rambling on it all. Aaron, what's your take on the concept? What's your take on small businesses being able to implement this and accounting firms recommending and promoting it to their small businesses?
So just before going to that, just to give you a bit of a context, I found a £9 per month floating around. So that's what it was before. And for what I can tell, that's what Sage Earth are trying to promote, but they do have a contact us button, so maybe that pricing's not accurate. But yeah, £9 per month is, that's more than reasonable.
That's very affordable. If that's what it is going to be, I've got a lot of clients that would take up that option.
Yeah. Because it's also not just for Sage as well. We've got currently connections with QuickBooks, Xero, Sage Cloud Online, and everything else. So it is something that, by looks of it, we can use for current clients as well. How long that connection maintains for, we don't know, but yeah, currently.
Yeah. Well, having had our conversation with Chris, I think that those connections will stay. He's very open and saying, look, we don't care what bookkeeping software you're using. If you need to plug into something that we're doing that someone else isn't, that's okay. We can work with that.
Yeah.
But
the auto entry is never taken away, is it? It's always been connected to the competitors as well. So it's a great.
And they've never done that thing of, here's a really nice, brand new, sexy feature, but we're only releasing it into Sage users. They've always said, no, this is available for everyone. So yeah, if it's £9 a month, then that's affordable. I'll go back into my cage about the price costing of these types of softwares, because that is very affordable. Now, whether that's because Sage has got the financial backing to be able to do that and undercut the market, or if that was their pricing originally, I don't know. But
yeah, that was their original pricing. So I suppose we don't have confirmation Sage are going to maintain that pricing.
No.
But yeah, you'd imagine it'll be around that sort of figure for it to be still viable.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Okay, so what are your thoughts on the idea?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love this whole idea. I think the end result is what we all want. We both signed up for QuickBooks go neutral, carbon neutral by X amount of date. Again, I can't remember what date we were supposed to be done for. But it was one of those where we were very keen to sign up for. I think the concept of it's brilliant. But even with that initiative, like, we've been given no support, no help, no communication at all with it, have we? It's
literally, it's been nothing since the sign up. They've never emailed, no follow up, no resources to help steer us in. That whether the initiative just didn't get the coverage they were expecting, and they just kind of went, well, that's fine, we'll leave it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? But the whole idea, the whole push for it. I've personally gone for an electric car. It's the jury's out if that's now going to be better or worse for the environment. But if you go by what the media tells you, then apparently I'm God's gift to the environment at the moment. But yeah, again, we'll see if that's actually the case or not. But the idea, though, the idea of being able to put some facts and figures into that, put it into some lovely graphs and charts. I think that's one thing that Sage is absolutely dominating at the moment, is how to present data. It's gone very, and again, this harps back to what Chris was talking about in his talk. His whole idea is that we can have all this data, but it's how do we present it to clients that matter. And if you just look at kind of some of the screenshots and everything of Sage Earth, that's what they're absolutely nailing. It's really easy to see. It's a dashboard that makes sense. And if they can figure out how to make it that simplified and that straightforward, then the adoption is going to be good. And like you said, if there's, ever comes the occasion that we need to start putting this onto set of accounts, then this becomes an absolute no-brainer going forward. How accurate it is, that's always been my, I don't know. I don't know how accurate these sort of estimates are. Like you said, if someone's working from home opposed to working in an office, how does that impact it? I remember QuickBooks' whole part of their initiative to try and make us net neutral was the idea of getting rid of having servers instead and going completely to the cloud. And there's definitely argument for that's going to be better for the overall environment, but there's still the infrastructure of the cloud that's going to need to be taken into account. And all these are still estimates, aren't they? So it's really, really difficult to find an exact figure. And yes, you can praise the fact that you get a 4.5 reduction, it says on this website here, but you're basing that on not facts and figures. You're basing that on assumptions and estimates and everything else. So I don't think they'll ever be able to make it 100% right. I think that's pie in the sky sort of idea. But I think maybe just finding out how that estimate's worked and giving us a chance to get some sort of audit of it, as your own firm. If it goes into that sort of detail, I think that could be something that would be useful to kind of give people that thought. My other kind of take on this is just what, we've already said before, but what an ecosystem Sage is really building now. They've just absolutely got this whole solution and things you wouldn't even think of. Like, if you were going to go and sit there and think what's Sage's next acquisition, don't think any of us would have had high on our sweepstake that they would have gone for a carbon neutral-esque, reporting tool. But obviously that's what they've gone for, and fair play for it. So yeah, it's an interesting one. And I hope this starts a trend that other solutions come out, that, or at least solutions are more looking at this, so that we can have some other ways in which we can maybe compare against it, give us that chance to compare the data, see if we get similar sort of results, that sort of thing. So yeah, it'll be interesting. And I wonder if this is going to have any play with the whole going into the partnership with Hammock and everything else, because energy efficiency is a huge topic for landlords at the moment, and there's a lot of bit there. So I wonder if there's potential here that we could kind of see those two working together more now that partnership's there. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting times. Definitely something we've got to keep an eye on, haven't we?
Yeah, and yeah, obviously we've had a lot of exposure to Sage over the last couple of weeks and months, haven't we? Where we're more so than I've ever had before. And I think what scares me is the more and more we talk about Sage, the more and more intrigued I am. And the more and more I think actually there's a lot of softwares that really need to hook up their ideas and follow suit. So whether that's through acquisitions, developing their own tools, building their own social media, Sage are pretty on it at the moment. That as I said to Chris I don't think it made it into the final cut, but the giant has awoken from its slumber.
Yeah.
QuickBooks and Xero, they got into the UK at a time when Sage was a bit half asleep, kind of, we've got this market sewn up, but we've got no challengers. And it didn't take much to outpace them and to show a better, more modern experience. But
remember, cloud was a fad. That was there.
Yeah, they were very much the Kodak of the accounting world. For anyone that's not aware, Kodak invented the digital camera and decided that was a fad, and digital cameras were never going to be a real thing. And where are Kodak now? Nowhere. Although I think I see their name on batteries every now and then. But Sage has definitely awoken, and the spending taps have been opened. And yeah, the more and more we talk about it, the more I'm exposed to it, the more I think if I hadn't already made my commitments to QuickBooks in the way I have, in the form of supporting their products and integrating them completely into our processes and systems, I would have to have some serious thinking time about whether Sage was the right choice for us going forwards. And I think it would be in a lot of ways. So yeah, it's it's an interesting concept, Sage Earth, and I think it just shows yet again Sage being on the front foot with this type of thing.
Yeah, well, without a doubt. We've had a comment: electric mill versus mini mill as well. So it's a great analogy. I'm just to give you some background or a peek behind the curtains. One of my next videos is the look at Sage from a QuickBooks perspective. A QuickBooks user tries out Sage. I'm not quite got the name right yet, but we're going along that sort of idea. So I spent this weekend actually playing around with Sage itself, the whole suite from start to finish. And I mean, I reviewed it a year and a half ago. The changes that have been implemented from a year, it's a whole different product again. It was a whole different product a year and a half ago compared to what it was when it was Sage Cloud back in the day. And yeah, atrocious piece of software, unfortunately. But no, what is now is a really, really capable piece of software. And I was actually pleasantly surprised. And built in there is accounts production, there's corporation tax, there's personal tax, all without any extra fees involved. For the accountant side of things, it makes a really, really competitive product, doesn't it? And we've seen on social people who are fully backed by Sage, they're doing really well, and they're being backed not just from the software point of view, but from the industry, from the company itself, isn't it? So yeah, it's great to see, and I think we will have to keep an eye on Sage. I think we've got to make sure that every time that they have an update or acquisition or anything else, we give it its time on this show. So we always thought Sage would never catch up, being years behind the cloud, but it seems their acquisition of fast tracking their growth. Yeah, exactly right, Paul. And I think the main thing there is it's not just the fact that they've, from a technology point of view, they've caught up, but it's just their whole idea of creating that ecosystem. We say it all the time on the show, but that ecosystem idea is so powerful. The idea that you can take on a new client, send out an engagement letter to them, and then at the same time just turn on the features they want. And it's literally is a tick box exercise. Oh, they need Sage, they need this, they need that, tick, tick, tick. And they're done. That onboarding process just becomes so much more slick and useful. And yes, we can replicate it ourselves in outside of Sage, but that's a lot of Zapier, and there's a lot of coding, and there's a lot of, hoping that this software doesn't fall down because of this software. And yeah, it is doable, but it's a much more complicated beast outside of Sage by the looks of it.
Definitely. Okay, let's move on to another software. So last week we covered Dext Itza, and we'd seen the demo, Accounting Web Live, and I think either of us were overly impressed or blown away. It was a tool, it does its job, we get that. But I think the pricing was too expensive for what they were offering. But Coconut, it started off life as a sole trader / bank account type tool to try and get ready for MTD ITSA. It's had a few changes and pivots in the last couple of years, where it's gone away from the banking and focus and more onto the general ledger focus. But in the last week, they have launched their OCR technology for their receipt capture tool, and are very much targeting the as they say, the shoebox businesses. So the people that keep all their receipts in a shoebox and launch it and pass it on to their accountant to deal with. And we've had a look at Coconut, and Aaron, you've had a more detailed look into their software and how it all works than I have. But just on their website, there's little things that make you think these guys have really got their ideal client nailed. So Coconut's pricing is something we're going to discuss, because they're £7.50 including VAT, whereas Dext is going to be £6 including VAT a month. But the amount of extra features and insights you get from Coconut for that extra £1.50 is phenomenal. And that's what we're going to discuss today, I think. But just the fact that on their pricing page, they've got monthly plan, £7.50 per month, including VAT. A lot of sole traders, they don't care about including or excluding VAT. What they want to know is that amount that's going to leave their bank each month. So when they say it's £5 and then £6 comes out the bank, they go, well, hang on a minute. of VAT. So I like that. But what I really liked was next to including VAT, in that usual smaller print where you get including or excluding VAT, it highlights that it's tax deductible. It's like they've really thought about what are the, who are we targeting here? Well, there's no point in telling accountants that this accounting software is tax deductible because we know. But what they're obviously targeting here is the sole trader themselves going, look, use this software. This is the price per month coming out of your bank account because we've included the VAT in that price. Oh, and by the way, if you weren't sure, this is tax deductible. You can put this on your expense list. And I just think that is a fantastic example of niching your marketing to your client. I think that's absolutely brilliant. But Aaron, you spent a lot more time looking at the tools within Coconut and how it works. And we looked at Dexit last week. We know you can either go through receipts or bank, one or the other, to then file quarterly returns. What does Coconut do on top of that?
Yeah, I think the big one is that or statement you just said there. So that's the bit that I still can't get my head around from the MTD Dex MTD It's offering. I don't understand that or functionality. You're going to have a sit down with a client at the beginning of their journey and their process, or you're going to dictate to them whichever way around it's going to be. And you're going to tell them either we're going to connect their bank and we're going to be feeding the bank data through, or we're going to be using your software, OCR technology, to extract it. And to me, that's the bit that maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm missing something massively here, or a subsection of clients that I'm just completely not seeing. But I don't see where that or functionality is going to really come into play. I think that's just going to cause too much confusion. And ultimately, you're pigeonholing clients from day one. And I don't know how easy it is to maybe swap that solution around or migration of data. I don't know. Maybe they've made it really slick to make that choice and flick around. But again, that all bit really, really ekes on me.
Also behavioural, isn't it? So that if I turn around to a client and say, you can use a bank feed. So if they turn around and say, oh, we're an online shop, everything goes in and out of the bank, we don't do cash. It's like, cool.
Exactly.
The bank connection is the right one for you. But then if that client then gets to the point where, I need to go VAT registered, we've developed a behavioural pattern where, don't worry about your receipts, we've got the bank feed, that's okay, that keeps HMRC happy. And now go, actually, no, we now need the receipts because they've got the VAT information on. But we've already trained them and put them into one behavioural and habit routine. And now we're going to have to change that. And we all know the biggest concern accountants have about MTD in general is the behavioural change from an annual return to a quarterly return. So, yeah, I don't think Dex have done it right at all. But
no, and we could say the same about Zero Go as well when that got launched. Maybe they've brought in bank connections now, maybe they haven't. I don't know. But originally, when it first got released, Zero Go, similar concept. Let's make it really simple for small businesses to get their BMTD compliant. But it was a case of not connecting your bank account because they didn't have the functionality yet. Maybe that's coming in soon and at a different price and everything else. But it was just strange. It was just a strange way of doing it. What I think Coconut's nailed, though, is it's just going, right, instead of you having to pick and choose and maybe have functionality and not have functionality, they just give you that whole solution, and it's mobile first. So I know clients who've played around with it before, and the idea is that it's more visually appealing. It's very much you can tell where they got their bank, originally had that bank solution, which, by the way, I wish was still a thing. I thought that was a great little USP for them. Obviously there's been reasons why they can't, that's fair enough. But because they've kind of developed their system to be very bank centric first, you can see they've leaned on things like Starling and Revolut and how they've looked at banking in a different way. So great example of this is if you see an expense, it's got the logo of that expense on it, Adobe or whatever it's going to be. And that visual first is really, really appealing to clients because they can see straight away, oh, that's my Adobe subscription. Oh, that's my, Netflix subscription. That should be personal, whatever it's going to be. It gives them that opportunity to make those decisions in a more visual basis. And I think that's really important. But ultimately, for that extra £1, you're not making a choice. You're just having a piece of software that you can, throw whatever data you want to throw at it and let it do its cleverness to try and figure it out. Now, it's always going to be based on how accurate these things are going to be. OCR technology lives on die on how fast and how accurate. That's why, I'm a big believer in QuickBooks OCR's receipt capture, but it has got its criticisms, and people do say that it's very, very fast, but it's not as accurate, and we don't have as many features and all this, that, and the other. There's always going to be judged on how accurate that's going to be. But my point is, for software like this, it doesn't need to be 100% accurate. What it's doing for the client is just taking away some of the pain points. The fact that they've taken a photo, they've brought it in there, even if they only extract 50% of the information they need to extract, the fact that it's done that enough to just get that habit of taking a photo of that transaction and bringing it in, it's going to make our life so much easier as accountants, and clients' life so much easier when it comes to filing for MTD, because they're going to have physical documents to back it up with and explain it with and everything else. So yeah, I'm all up for it. I think it's going to give them the opportunity to be able to not have to make that choice. And then it's a watered down bookkeeping solution, but it's still a full bookkeeping solution. You can send invoices and estimates and things like that out. So they're going to have that functionality way more accessible to them at £7.50. You can't really go wrong, I don't think. So yeah, I think if we had a choice to look at the subsection of clients, and this is based at those clients who are quote unquote shoebox clients, aren't they? That's what we're aiming for. So clients who just put all the records into a shoebox and hope for the best. This could be a really, really idea for them, because it turns it around to them that they could be sat in front of the TV watching, some binge watching some episode or whatever it's going to be, have that shoebox out, have a phone out, and literally just take photos of it as they're going along. If you can make it as simplified as that for a client, that could be something that's super impressive or super useful for them. So yeah, I think there's I think the pricing seems fine, seems good. So yeah, I think it's something that we'll definitely be exploring a little bit further in our practice.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said for these softwares that have just got the one offering. So Hammock, by far best in class landlord tool you're ever going to come across at the moment.
Agreed.
Coconut is doing what QuickBooks Self-Employed, Zero Go, etc. does. However, it's all Coconut does. So they're always going to be able to do probably a better experience and a more in-depth experience than Self-Employed from QuickBooks will ever do.
Yeah. Because
the whole team at Coconut is focused on this one thing. And I think it really shows the benefit of niching in the software world. They've worked out their target audience. They've just cracked on with it, and they're doing a great job.
Yeah. I mean, Paul makes a great point about still find Coconut a little clunky to use with the clients I have. Their bookkeeping automation needs a bit more improvement. Rules, please. I'd like to see more accounting views as well. I completely agree with the automation side of things. I think that's a no-brainer, isn't it? Let's try and leverage off what the competition are doing and try and put some more rules in. And if QuickBooks are listening as well, QuickBooks receipt capture need rules as well. I'll say that every single time. But the only thing I'd say on that one, Paul, is I don't know if we need more accountancy-only views, because I don't know if it's really designed, for the accountant in mind. And I think that's a good thing. I think let's keep it client first. I think some software needs to go down that approach, or a lot more software needs to go down that approach. The reason that I've always put my hat on QuickBooks is that most of the time it's client first and accountant second, and I like that approach, because the easier we can make it for the client, the more that we're going to have an opportunity of success rates and adoption for the software and everything else. If we, sacrifice something for the client for the good of the accountant, then that's when we normally find that we don't get that buy-in, do we? So great points there, Paul. Yeah, but I think there's a question mark over how accountant centric do we need it to be.
And I think the software world has found and accepted the fact that 1.4 million tax filers don't use an accountant or bookkeeper. Now those 1.4 have got to be serviced by software.
Yeah,
because when MTD comes in, they've got to use the software. the issue you've got is, do you force that 1.4 million into using an accountant because they can't understand the software, which HMRC won't be happy with, because people would rather try and do it themselves in that 1.4 million people than talk to an accountant or bookkeeper. We have to accept not everyone's going to use us. We've not got a whole market thing like they do in America, where everyone's got to file via a certain qualification of accountant for their tax returns. So if we've got to serve that 1.4 million to meet MTD ITSA requirements, they need a client-first solution, and that is what Hammock and Coconut are fantastic for. And Hammock and Coconut then see there is a collaboration to be had between accountants and their software to help support the rest of the taxpayers that will go through an accountant as well. And I think as accountants, we keep forgetting that there's 1.4 million taxpayers who file self-assessment tax returns and do not use our services. And that's where softwares are targeting. And that's sometimes where that issue of accountants feel like we're being bypassed by softwares to go direct to customer. Actually, it's more to meet that 1.4 million taxpayers requirement and to get them ready for ITSA, whilst the software providers work with us to get our clients ready for ITSA.
Yeah. And it goes really well with that conversation we had, 3 weeks ago, with the Connect 4, that whole idea with software having burn rates and the worry and everything else. Well, as accountants, we're looking at these trade shows and going, oh, they're quite quiet, or, they've not had much buzz around them. But, we forget the 1.4 million that they're actually aiming for, that is going to keep them around for X amount of years and keep them a viable product. So, it's good all around. Like, let them keep producing it for them. And also, what I find really interesting is they're going to find far more questions and issues and problems. It's like with my channel, I get far more people or far more useful feedback from the end user that I can pass over to QuickBooks than I do from an accountant majority of the time, because they've actually got pain points that maybe we've not even thought about as the accountant. And Coconut and Hammock, they're going to have that user base that's going to help them push it forward. So I think the more user centric we can make it, I'm really, really excited with it. So yeah, as long as it's not the banks that dominate it, because what I don't want is Starling and Revolut solutions to be the MTD future, and great software like Hammock and Coconut kind of get put to one side. That's what I hope doesn't happen. Yeah, no, definitely agree.
We've got quite a few comments coming in actually on these various topics, so let's go through those. So Jonathan Reeves wants to know, are you looking forward to MTD? Personally, I am. I think MTD, it's going to be a hell of a headache. There's going to be a lot of stress, changes of routines and behaviors, both in our firms and in our clients' behavior. However, whether they're part of the 1.4 million that don't use accountants or the rest of the self-assessment people that do use accountants, HMRC are basically forcing someone who runs a small business to review their finances. Instead of annually, they're doing it quarterly. And that can only be a good thing. Someone that understands their business's finances on a quarterly basis has got a better chance of surviving and of growing and highlighting problems and getting rid of those problems quick and doing it quicker than they have if they just look at their finances once a year.
Yeah.
Like, if they're just going off the bank balance, that looks all right, that looks all right, that's not going to work for them. So I think MTD presents a huge opportunity to help educate our small business owners in financial matters and make them more aware more frequently of their business's financial performance, which is a real challenge for us to have that conversation with them at the moment. It's going to come with its headaches. It's going to be hard work, but from an education point of view for the small business owners, I think that has got to be a positive, and it will have a positive impact on the economy in the long run when we've got more successful and profitable small businesses.
Yeah, I completely agree with the positivity there, and I'm exactly the same. I can't wait for, you know, MTD to be a reality just because of the goodness it will do. Now, excuse me, there are definitely going to be clients out there that are going to find it challenging, and I think we as accountants, we owe it to them and software to find solutions for them, and I think we can find solutions that are going to help them. So I'm thinking more the farmers and people like that that are really going to struggle to adopt it, and there's going to be technical issues for them. But once we've figured that bit out, what I'm excited about is I feel like MTD is just phase one of where we can take this. Like phase two is having that utopia where we can actually, all of us, because we're all on software, we send an invoice from one person to the next, and it just goes to that piece of software. Like, let's take away this whole bookkeeping malark and let's have it and more, more AI driven and more blockchain driven and everything else that goes with it. So that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited for that next stage of where we can go. Now, I know I'm talking from a bit of a unique perspective, and I know Johann, you're pretty similar, where 90+% of our clients are all using software anyway. So yeah, it's easy for us to kind of say here and say, oh, it's all rosy going forward. But those challenges that we do have for clients, I think they're going to be good challenges. And you know what? Worst case scenario, it weeds out some of the some of the small businesses out there that don't want to modernize and don't want to go through. Unfortunately, we'll just weed them out. But some of those were, not declaring everything anyway. That's the reason they're so scared about being MTD, going to MTD. So yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. But I think you're not going to find many more pro MTD people than me and Johann on this show. So we'll go forward on that one.
Definitely. Someone has asked, I missed the part where you described the best software for landlords. In our humble opinion, Hammock is by far the best landlord solution we've seen out there. It's just an incredible bit of kit for adding value to the landlord's view of their portfolio, and it can handle quite a lot of complexity without any issue whatsoever. So definitely worth having a chat with the guys over at Hammock and seeing what they're doing and how they're doing it.
Definitely. Bit of a shout out for a client of mine, Cookies and the Haydens. So yeah, great little reseller there. Good YouTube channel. So I highly recommend jumping over to their YouTube channel if you want to know more about reselling. Paul also mentions that he's happy for the accountant view on desktop and leave them off mobile. So just an update on Coconut. So thank you for that update. But we do have a question. So I'll pass this question over to you, Johann. Have you looked at the new DEX update? Update appears to handle sole traders and landlords. And that's for Jonathan.
Cool. Yeah. So we have, haven't we? And I think we've made reference to it earlier in the show, Jonathan. So have a listen back, but also have a listen to last week's episode where we were open and honest about our feedback on that idea of what they're doing and how they're doing it. It is definitely worth having a demo with them before you start looking at it for your clients and thinking it's a solution, because it's a very limited tool for what MTD it's perhaps going to need. So yeah, definitely worth having a listen back to last week's episode of Ask the Accountant around the DEX tool for ITSA. Because yeah, it's got its place, but it's got its limitations, and it's got quite a high price point compared to what else is out there for that, in return of value for money for the amount of features that DEX offers compared to Zero Go, QuickBooks Self-Employed, Hammock, Coconut, etc.
Yeah, I think the only other point that maybe we didn't make clear enough last week is that as much as we think the software is a little lackluster, say for a better word, and again, that choice thing is confusing, it is good to see another player in that market. Like QuickBooks, Zero, Sage, they've been the freeopoly for a long, long time. We've already talked about Coconut, Hammock, and all those niche ones that have got that market that they're going for a particular section for, and hats off to them, and we hope for success for them. But when we look at the big boys, DEX is really the only one. I know there's Free Agent as well, but Free Agent itself is always going to struggle to get that that lion's share of it, isn't it? So it kind of needs someone like DEX with that financial backing and that ecosystem already to build something, to bring something to the table. And I think this could be their baby steps into it to see how it goes. So I think from that point of view, that could be quite exciting, couldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Dex have done anything to give any of the others any loss of sleep over at the moment. There's not one feature in there where you go, oh, that's better than anything else on the market, and makes the others step up and deliver some version of that feature.
Yeah.
But hopefully they will, and that will motivate further improvements.
Definitely.
Another question from Paul. Here's a thought for you. With MTD, complexity of keeping records going to increase. I've seen a lot of accountancy acquisitions of late. Will we see Tesco and Asda's of the accounting world coming out in the future, aimed at sole traders at a price we can't compete with? You know what? I'm not worried. If you have a look at all the big boys like KPMG, etc., over the last few years, they've launched products, softwares, services into the small business world, and every single one of them's closed them down in the last year because it's just not worked for them. The general association of that brand is that it's too expensive for small businesses. They would never look at those big players. Are we going to see things like Tax Assist, etc., do bigger and better out of this? Possibly, but ultimately they are only franchisees, so they can't. It's not an overly powerful platform for them. They've not got their own softwares or anything like that. I'm not worried about anyone moving in and dominating the space. I don't think anyone's in a position to do that unless you think otherwise, Aaron.
I think the only ones that have the potential are your Crunch of the worlds, because they own their own software and they deliver the compliance side. And then I suppose Mazuma gets a shout as well. Like they've gone down their own route of building their own software and doing that. And I think that's ultimately where, thankfully for us, likes of QuickBooks and Xero and Sage, especially QuickBooks, from what we know, is that they are pushing more power towards us as accountants to help us with that journey and give us that opportunity to be more, competitive and offer services. But I think the only ones that could just dominate that platform, and again, it's about them doing it themselves, will be the banks of the world. Like if Starling or Revolut or NatWest or whoever just creates this piece of software that just does it for them, then that's where MTD will lie, won't it? It's going to lie within the software of the bank because, as a client, why would you want to leave that? You're already in there making payments and checking your bank on a regular basis to, make sure your business is going in the right direction. So why not also file your MTD while in there for next to nothing and become included? It will become a no-brainer. My only concern about that is I don't feel like that software is going to give them anything other than a compliance checklist, as opposed to what QuickBooks and Xero and Sage are doing brilliantly, which is the added extra and helping them push their business forward and items like that. So yeah, that's my thought on the matter. So we'll see. I don't think Tesco's and Asda or anyone like that would benefit from it personally, but I think that the established ones already on the market could absolutely dominate. And also for accountants, we've got to see MTD as an opportunity for us as well to grab more clients and grab more businesses as well as we go along. So
yeah, definitely.
Jonathan also says, good point regarding the positives. Thank you for that. And then probably our final question is from Paul. I've noticed new chart of accounts, expenses, subcategories in QuickBooks 2. Some are targeting landlords. Well, there's a whole landlord section that should already be out, with what we were told anyway. But it's, for whatever reason, it's been delayed. So do keep an eye out for that, because there is a QuickBooks are targeting landlords as well. We spoke about it was it here or was it QuickBooks Labs? It was one of the two podcasts we spoke about.
I think we discussed it on both podcasts. Yeah, I mean, Xero, Sage, and QuickBooks free agents one's already released. I think their landlord solution. None of them are going to be doing it in the same way that Hammock have done it. A lot of them are just focusing on the chart of accounts being changed to make it more landlord friendly. It's a solution, but it's not the best solution. So yeah, they're all going to have their solutions. It's just working out which one adds the most value. And I think a lot of the accountants I speak to are saying, look, we're worried about MTD because it's going to be extra work. It's going to cost the clients more. So actually, and I said, well, that's fine, but we need to deliver more value. So am I going to charge £7 a month for a client to use the Dex tool, or Coconut, or QuickBooks, or Hammock? Which one's going to give that specific client more value? I would argue QuickBooks and Xero would give more value to a sole trader over Dext and more insights, and Hammock would give more value to a landlord than QuickBooks, Xero, or Dext. So it's working out what's the best tool for the price point for the value it's given. Because the more value you can offer to that client, the more they're prepared to pay extra for the MTD services that they're going to be needing in the future.
Yeah, completely. And I suppose we also are a little bit we got to figure out exactly what HMRC's requirements are going to be as well, because currently it sounds like the way they've positioned it is that if you're going to be filing your sole trader through QuickBooks, and you're going to have to file your landlord through QuickBooks as well. So we could be absolutely forced down that route for some clients. But I'm and we've said it before on this show, and we'll say it again, like, our criticism of these ones, if it's just chart of accounts that are being changed, is that's going to be too complicated for some clients out there. Like, just something as simple as having an agent that does their rental for them first, and they get net paid into their bank account. That's quite a complex transaction for your average client to be able to figure out themselves and sort out themselves. So unless they can find a wonderful solution around that, which Hammock already has, and that's where it's becoming so user friendly, it's got that built in, it's got the mortgage side of things already sorted out as well, where it's splitting your interest and your capital out and all those sort of things. Unless all these softwares can develop solutions for that, then it's going to be really difficult to recommend anything other than Hammock going forward. What does scare me though is the software developers aren't seeing that. They don't see that as a need or as a problem. And I think realistically, if they had a solution for it, they'd already be built in. I think it's just lack of the systems they already have. It's lack of finding a suitable solution for them going forward. So yeah, it's going to be tricky. Hammock had the beauty and the idea and why they are best in class is because they were able to just build it from the ground up as what they need it to be. It was designed for a particular niche, and it absolutely dominates on that bit. So we shall see. We shall see what happens. But yeah, keep an eye out for QuickBooks Landlord and for the rest of them to come through as well, because I think it's going to be interesting to see how those solutions develop going forward.
Definitely. Right, we are running out of time. We have got 2 questions that have come in, but we're going to prioritize those for next week, so that we are within the hour. So if you've got questions you want answering, please do send them in. It saves us having to research for headlines and topics of conversation each week. So you're making our lives easier by asking us questions that are relevant to you, whilst improving the value of what we're offering on our podcast. So if you've got any questions, please use the links in the boxes, in the comments that are whatever platform you're watching us on. This will be streamed out on your favorite podcast channels on every Wednesday. And obviously, as you've seen today, we've had loads of interactions and questions live, which is absolutely fantastic. And that's where the real value is. So rather than just listening to us on a podcast, why not get involved live 8:30 every Monday morning, and ask your questions and get them answered live, because we'll always prioritize the live ones over the ones that come in on the back of a feedback form. So yeah, Aaron, what have you got coming up this week?
So this week for me is trying to get everything in line for this thing called Christmas. I don't know if you're aware of it, but that's in a couple of weeks' time. So yeah, we're obviously looking towards had a bit of a shutdown period for the practice, so we need to get everything up to date, make sure clients are got to set their expectations. So yeah, it's going to be a busy week, but yeah, looking forward to getting done. And we've got something quite busy on next weekend, haven't we? So yeah, that could be another reason to get everything done.
Yes, yeah, next weekend, hopefully I will be joining you in London with our good ladies to go and watch Peter Kay. Train strikes dependent, but we will see. So hopefully in our next episode, we'll just be full of one-liners from Peter Kay himself. Yeah, we shall see. But yeah, right. Well, I'm literally just working from the office all week and client meetings, saying thank you to everyone and getting ready for Christmas as you do. Try and get the work cleared so you can have a quieter Christmas period. We'll see how that goes, but never mind. But yeah, so that's it from us. Make sure you join us next week at 8:30 a.m. on Monday. We are on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, every platform in the world. So no excuse for not tuning in to see us live. And thank you for joining us. Anything you want to add, Aaron?
No, just a big thank you, and we'll see you all next week.
Great. See you all next week, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.